I learned now the sound a marriage makes when it stops protecting you. It isn't a scream, it's a polite little chirp from a phone you've heard 1,000 times. Pleasant, efficient, and final. Like an elevator deciding you don't belong on the other side. The chirp happened at 2:13 a.m. on Deck 12 of the Magnolia Belle, a luxury cruise ship dressed up like a floating chandelier. The ocean around us was black glass, and moonlight skimmed over it like a blade. I was barefoot because I'd kicked off my heels to feel something real. The teak boards were cold. The wind tasted like salt and engine heat. Somewhere inside, a jazz set was still breathing, music meant to make strangers feel romantic. I stood at the railing with a sweating glass of club soda and watched the wake stretch behind us, a long white scar on dark water. My name is Danielle Brooks, and the man who caused that chirp, without even touching the phone, was my husband, Malcolm Brooks. 25 years married, 2 kids grown, 1 retirement plan we'd been polishing like silver. This anniversary cruise was supposed to be our reset. No work, no stress, Malcolm promised when he booked it. Just you and me. It sounded safe. That's the thing about good lies. They sound like comfort. Dinner had been candlelight and champagne, and the waiter calling us a beautiful couple. Malcolm held my hand across the table, thumb rubbing slow circles on my knuckle, a gesture so practiced it could have been rehearsed. Afterward, he suggested a walk on deck. I went because I wanted to believe him. We walked in the quiet couples get good at after decades, the silence that can feel comfortable or dangerous depending on what's underneath it. The ship rolled gently, a cradle if you don't think about the water. Halfway down the deck, Malcolm's pocket buzzed. He checked his phone too fast, then turned his body slightly away from mine, just enough to block my view. "Everything okay?" I asked. He smiled without meeting my eyes. "Work stuff. You know how it is." Work stuff, on a cruise ship, after midnight. The phrase dropped between us like a coin into a deep well. I nodded anyway. I'd gotten good at that too. He kissed my forehead and said, "I'm going to grab some air by the pool bar. Be right back." He walked a few steps and paused like he was waiting for a signal. Checked his phone again, looked up toward the dark windows above, then down at the deck like he was counting. I told myself he was restless. I told myself the tightness in my chest was stress, age, anything but instinct. Malcolm returned wearing that calm composure he uses when he wants to end a conversation. "I'm heading in," he said. "You should too. You've been tired." "I'm fine," I said. He laughed softly. "Danielle, don't start. Let's not do this tonight." "Don't start." His favorite phrase, the way you speak to a child who's about to make a mess. "I'm not starting anything," I said. "I'm just standing here." "You always read into things," he replied. "You get yourself worked up over nothing." Gaslighting husband manipulation delivered like concern. "I'm not worked up," I said. "Not yet." He kissed my cheek, quick, public, a performance, then placed his phone on the lounge chair beside mine. Face up, easy, innocent. "I'll be inside," he said. "Don't stay out too long." Then he walked away, disappearing into the bright hallway like a man returning to the life he wanted. I didn't follow him. The deck felt safer than the suite. The suite held our luggage, our matching robes, the faint smell of his cologne. Home, once. Out here, the ocean didn't care what story he told. I leaned on the railing and breathed. Salt, diesel, a trace of sunscreen. The pool lights glowed underwater, turquoise and eerie, making the water look alive. That's when the chirp happened. Malcolm's phone lit up. A banner slid across the screen, bright against the dark. Reservation confirmed. My brain stalled. I stared until the rest appeared. Reservation confirmed. 2 guests. 2, not 1. Not Mr. and Mrs., not anything that belonged to me. My stomach dropped so hard I tasted metal. The ship didn't change, but I did. Maybe it's a dinner reservation, I tried to tell myself. Maybe it's nothing. But the message wasn't from the cruise line. It was a plain text preview from a number without a name. Underneath it was a place I recognized from a brochure by the gift shop. Harbor House Suites. Not on the ship. On land. Quiet, discreet. Perfect for couples. The brochure had promised. Perfect for couples. I reached for the phone before I could talk myself out of it. My fingers closed around it. The screen was still lit. The message still glared. I swiped up. The phone unlocked immediately. No passcode. Malcolm always said he had nothing to hide. He loved saying it in front of people, like it made him noble. "If you're married, what's mine is yours," he'd joke. And yet here I was, holding the truth like a live wire. I opened messages. The top thread was the same unknown number. The last text was the reservation confirmation. I clicked. A conversation filled the screen. Blue and gray bubbles stacked like steps leading down. I didn't start at the top. I looked for sharp points first. There was a photo sent earlier that day. White sheets, soft light, a glass of champagne on a table. I tapped it. A hotel room. And in the corner, just enough to make my throat close, a woman's hand held up two keycards like trophies. Her nails were painted deep wine. Above the photo, "Can't wait to finally have you to myself." Below it, Malcolm's reply. "Soon, stay patient, soon, patient." Words you use with someone you're managing, not someone you're trying to shut down. I scrolled up a little. A few more lines. "Don't worry, she doesn't know anything. She." Not Danielle, not my name. Just she, like I was furniture in the background of his real life. My hands stayed steady. No shaking, no tears. My body went cold, choosing survival over heartbreak. I forced myself to look at the dates. The thread didn't start on this cruise. It went back months. Not a vacation flirtation. Months of planning. A second life written in small blue bubbles. Anniversary trip betrayal. Those words floated into my head like a calm voice from a true crime podcast. Not shocked, certain. Like the timeline had been set. I looked up from the phone and around the deck. The ship was quiet in a way that felt haunted. Lounge chairs lined up like bodies that laid out for inspection. Far down the deck, a crew member pushed a cart slowly, wheels squeaking like footsteps. If I screamed, who would hear? If I ran, where would I go? On a ship, there's no clean exit. The sea is all around you like a warning. To my left, the lifeboats hung in their cradles. White pods with numbers painted on them, neat as teeth. A laminated safety sign was bolted to the bulkhead. "In case of emergency, proceed to your muster station." The arrow pointed toward an interior stairwell that smelled like disinfectant and floral air freshener. I stared at that arrow and felt my skin prickle, because the sign was written for storms and fires, not for husbands. Safety manuals never mention what to do when the danger sleeps in your bed and calls it love. The ship's cameras watched the deck. The railings were waist-high, polished, ready to take fingerprints. The ocean below looked soft from a distance, like velvet. Up close, it was heavy and endless. I found myself counting. 1 lounge chair, 2, 3. Like counting could keep me from falling apart. Like numbers could build a wall between me and the truth long enough to breathe, think, and choose until morning came. I held my breath and listened to the ship's heartbeat. I understood then why Malcolm liked cruises. Out here, you're trapped with the version of someone they choose to show you. I went back to the screen and did the smartest thing I could do in the dumbest moment of my life. I gathered evidence. I took screenshots. The reservation confirmation, 2 guests. The hotel room photo with the keycards. The line about "she doesn't know anything." I texted them to myself. Hidden second phone evidence is what people say when they want drama. Sometimes the evidence is right there, unlocked, placed beside you like a dare. I set Malcolm's phone back on the lounge chair, exactly where it had been. Face up, screen dark. Innocent again. Then I pulled out my own phone and stared at my reflection in the black glass. The deck lights carved shadows under my eyes. I looked like a woman who'd walked out of a romantic brochure and into an evidence file. I thought about the small things I'd dismissed over the past year. The calls in the garage, the way he said I was stressed any time I asked a direct question, the way he laughed when I mentioned updating our will and estate planning documents. Why are you thinking about death? He'd teased. You watch too many shows. Shows, podcasts, betrayal stories. Culture teaches women to be paranoid for entertainment, and men like Malcolm learn to weaponize that. You're imagining things. You're too sensitive. Maybe it's your age. Maybe it's you. That night on Deck 12 at 2:13 a.m., I realized something simple and brutal. It wasn't me. My husband cheated on a cruise, and he did it with the same calm confidence he used when he ordered wine. Like betrayal was just another item on his itinerary. I could have marched back to our suite and confronted him. I could have demanded names and apologies, but I knew Malcolm. He wouldn't panic. He would pivot. He would deny, then soften, then cry just enough to make me look cruel. He would call me irrational. He would turn my questions into a character flaw. So, I stayed quiet. Not because I was weak, because I was done being predictable. When I finally walked back to the suite, the hallway smelled like lemon polish and expensive perfume. The carpet swallowed my footsteps like it didn't want anyone to hear the truth entering. I opened the door. Malcolm lay in bed on his side, blanket pulled to his waist, one arm thrown over his eyes. Even sleep looked like a performance on him. He shifted when I entered. "Hey," he murmured. "You okay?" I stood in the doorway and watched him breathe, and the eerie part settled over me like fog. This wasn't only an affair, this was logistics, planning. A man moving pieces around a board. This was financial infidelity marriage, hiding in paperwork I hadn't seen yet. This was a future being arranged without my consent. This was a name being erased, quietly, politely, the way that reservation text had slid across his screen. "I'm fine," I said, and my voice came out steady. "You've been tense lately," he said softly. "Stress isn't good for you. Care is control." "I'm just tired," I said. "Long day." He nodded. "Come to bed. Tomorrow we'll do the spa. Reset." Reset. As if you could reset a life like you reset a router. I walked into the bathroom and closed the door quietly. The light was harsh. My face in the mirror looked calm, but my eyes were awake in a way they hadn't been yesterday. I turned on the faucet, letting water run loud enough to cover any sound I might make. I opened my phone and looked at the screenshots again. Reservation confirmed. 2 guests. In that sterile bathroom, with the ship humming under my feet like a machine that didn't care, I made myself a promise. I would not break in front of him. Not on his timeline. Not in a way he could twist. I would stay calm. I would stay quiet. I would collect every piece of truth he thought he'd hidden, including the reason behind that reservation and the name attached to it. And when I finally spoke, I would speak with evidence, not emotion. Because emotion is what men like Malcolm use as a weapon. If you're listening right now, don't go anywhere. What I found next wasn't just a secret hotel booking text, and it wasn't just another woman. It was the start of a plan, one that reached far past this ship. So stay with me. Hit that like button so this story reaches the people who need it, and drop a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. Trust me. The cold part is just getting started. By morning, the ship looked innocent again. Sunlight hit the water and turned it into something almost kind. The Magnolia Belle glided through blue like she was built for forgiveness. People in matching linen wandered the promenade with coffee cups and soft voices, the way they do when they believe their biggest problem is the line for omelets. I sat on our balcony with a robe wrapped around my shoulders, listening to Malcolm shower. The water ran steady, a curtain of white noise. Through the glass door, I watched the deck crew rinse yesterday's footprints away like they were cleaning evidence. My phone was on the table beside my coffee, screen dark. Screenshots hidden in a folder labeled recipes. It felt ridiculous, but secrecy has a way of turning smart women into spies in their own lives. Malcolm stepped out of the bathroom in a cloud of steam, towel around his waist, humming to himself. He looked relaxed, almost boyish, like a man on vacation who has never hurt anyone. "You sleep okay?" he asked. "I did," I lied. He bent down and kissed the top of my head. His hair smelled like the hotel shampoo the cruise line uses, citrus and something expensive. I thought about how smell can be a memory trap. For years, that scent would have meant ease. Now it meant camouflage. Spa at 11? He said. We'll do the couples massage. Start fresh. Start fresh, his favorite concept. Not because he liked renewal, but because it erased yesterday. He'd always treated time like an etch-a-sketch. Shake it hard enough and the mess disappears. Sure, I said. He smiled. That's my girl. My girl. Possession dressed up as affection. When he left for the buffet, I stayed on the balcony and let the quiet settle over me. It was the kind of quiet you get right before a storm, when the air feels too still and your skin knows something your mind is still trying to negotiate. I didn't confront him because I wasn't ready to play the role he'd written for me. The anxious wife, the suspicious woman, the one who reads into things. Malcolm has always been good at giving people the version of him they want to believe. I met him at 30. I'd already been working full-time, already paying my own bills, already done with the type of man who needed a woman to function like a life support machine. Malcolm felt different. He was polished, yes, but he was also attentive in the beginning. He remembered small details and repeated them back like promises. Our first date was at a little jazz bar in Harlem. He wore a navy suit and a watch that cost more than my rent. He asked me what I wanted out of life and listened like the answer mattered. When the band played My Funny Valentine, he leaned close and said, I'm not here to waste your time, Danielle. I believed him because I wanted to. That's not an insult. It's a fact. Desire is a filter. It smooths rough edges, turns warning signs into quirks, and makes a woman feel foolish for seeing clearly. My best friend Renee saw clearer than I did. Renee Walker has been my mirror since middle school. She's the kind of woman who can smell a lie the way some people smell rain. The night I introduced Malcolm to her, he poured her a drink, asked about her job, complimented her shoes. He did everything right. Renee waited until he walked away, then leaned into my ear and whispered, He performs. I laughed. Everybody performs on a first meet. Not like that, she said. He's studying you while he's charming us. I rolled my eyes because love hates skepticism. But Renee never forgot that feeling, and neither did Malcolm. I think. Men like him notice who doesn't clap. We married 2 years later. The wedding was elegant. Garden lights, live music. My mother crying in the front row because she believed I'd finally found a man who would take care of me. Malcolm smiled through every photo like he'd been built for that moment. He took care of me in the ways that looked good on paper. A house with a porch in a neighborhood that made people nod approvingly. Vacations once a year. A joint account where he insisted on handling the big stuff. He liked control, but he called it leadership. He liked being the decider, but he framed it as protection. And I let him, because I thought that's what partnership looked like. Two people taking different lanes toward the same destination. Our kids grew up. College. Careers. Their own lives. The house got quieter, and Malcolm got louder in his ambition. New titles, new suits. New friends whose laughter sounded like money. That was when the small weirdness started. The extra phone that wasn't an extra phone, just a work line. The meetings that ran late, then later. The careful way he kept his laptop angled away at the kitchen table. When I asked about it, he'd smile like I was adorable. Danielle, he'd say, you don't need to worry about business. You've carried enough. Carried enough. As if the years of raising our children, holding our home together, balancing holidays and grief and celebrations, were weights only he could relieve. Then came the estate planning conversation, the one that haunts me now. It was last fall, right after we attended a funeral for one of Malcolm's colleagues. The man died suddenly, and the family discovered the life insurance wasn't updated. The payout went to an ex-wife from 15 years earlier. It turned grief into chaos. I watched it happen and felt that practical alarm ring in my chest. That night, I pulled our folder from the cabinet. Deeds, wills, policies, adult paperwork, the kind that keeps a family from drowning when life turns. We should review these, I told Malcolm. Make sure everything's current. He didn't look up from his phone. Why? Nothing's changed. Things always change, I said. Beneficiaries, accounts, medical directives. I want to be sure. He finally looked at me. His eyes were warm, but the warmth didn't reach the center. It was the smile you give a child who wants to help in the kitchen. You've been listening to too many podcasts, he said, amused. All those murder stories got you thinking I'm going to drop dead. It's not about that, I said. It's about being responsible. He stood, crossed the room, and put his hands on my shoulders. Not gentle, anchoring. Danielle, he said softly, I have it handled. Handled. It should have been reassuring. Instead, something in me flinched, because his tone didn't sound like teamwork. It sounded like a door closing. I let it go. I didn't want an argument. Malcolm could turn any discussion into a trial where my emotions were the evidence against me. If I pushed, he'd say I was paranoid. If I insisted, he'd say I didn't trust him. And trust was the currency he demanded to stay comfortable. That was his trick. He made trust feel like obedience. So I obeyed. Until the cruise. He suggested it in December, the way a man suggests a gift. We need something for us, he said. 25 years deserves a celebration. He booked a suite. He surprised me with brochures and a little envelope with the Magnolia Bell logo. He even practiced saying no work like it was a vow. Renee, when I told her, didn't smile. You want me to tell you what I think? She asked. No, I said, too fast. Renee sighed. Okay, then I'll tell you what I know. When a man plans something big, don't just look at what he's giving. Look at what he's trying to cover. I got annoyed with her. I told myself she was cynical because her last boyfriend had been trash. I told myself she didn't understand what a long marriage looks like. But Renee understood me. That was the problem. On the ship, with that reservation text burning behind my eyes, I finally admitted what I'd been avoiding. Malcolm hadn't planned this cruise to celebrate us. He planned it to manage me, to keep me smiling while he moved pieces. The chilling part wasn't the idea of another woman. Men cheat every day. That's the ugly truth of the world. The chilling part was how organized it felt, how calm he was, how he could kiss my forehead and say, "Start fresh," while his phone confirmed a room for 2 guests. That's when I realized I wasn't dealing with passion. I was dealing with strategy. I sat there on the balcony, watching Malcolm disappear into the crowd toward the buffet, and I thought about the ocean again. About how deep it was, about how a person could vanish out there, swallowed by water, and the world would keep eating omelets. A soft knock came at our door. Housekeeping. A young woman in a crisp uniform smiled. Good morning, ma'am. Towel refresh? Sure, I said, stepping aside. As she replaced our towels, I noticed something on the counter. Malcolm's wallet open, a room key tucked behind his credit cards. Not our sweet key card, a different one. Plain white, with a gold stripe. My throat tightened. I picked it up. Printed on it, Harbor House Suites. Not on the ship, on land. 2 guests. I set it down carefully, as if it might explode. Then I did the only thing I could do without making noise. I smiled at the housekeeper. Thank you. She smiled back. Enjoy your cruise. I closed the door and leaned against it, heart beating slow and heavy, because now the betrayal had a physical shape, a key. And somewhere on this ship, Malcolm had already arranged the lock. I stared at that key until my eyes watered. Then I did what I've always done when fear tries to turn me soft. I organized it. I photographed the card. I noted the time. I opened my notes app and wrote, Harbor House Suites key found in wallet, tucked behind credit cards. I wrote it like a detective, because feelings can be argued with, but details don't bend. Outside in the corridor, the ship's intercom crackled to life. A voice reminded guests about tomorrow's mandatory safety briefing. Life jackets, muster stations, how to survive if the unthinkable happens. I stood there with betrayal in my hand and thought, that briefing won't cover this kind of drowning. When Malcolm came back with pastries and a smile, I slid the key where it had been, closed the wallet, and turned my face into calm. "Ready for the spa?" he asked. I smiled back. "After you." The spa smelled like eucalyptus and denial. Soft music floated through hidden speakers, the kind meant to convince you that nothing in your life is urgent. The hallway lights were low, flattering. Couples padded around in white robes like ghosts who'd paid for the privilege. Malcolm signed our names on a clipboard with the confidence of a man who has never been asked the wrong question. "Too deep tissue," he told the attendant. My wife's been tense. My wife's been tense. Translation, my wife has been noticing. I smiled the way women do when they are swallowing a scream. The attendant led us down a corridor lined with framed photos of beaches so perfect they looked fake. Malcolm kept one hand at the small of my back, steering, guiding, reminding my body who he believed owned it. In the treatment room, the two massage tables sat side by side like coffins dressed in linen. The therapists spoke in whispers. Malcolm lay face down and exhaled like he'd earned rest. I lay down too, cheek pressed to the cradle, and stared at the floorboards. The wood grain formed loops and knots that looked like maps. If you followed the lines long enough, you could imagine an exit. The therapist's hands found my shoulders. Warm oil, pressure, relief that would have felt luxurious on any other day. But my mind was elsewhere, walking through Malcolm's wallet, through that hotel key, through the text that said 2 guests. I listened to Malcolm's breathing, slow, even, untroubled. That was the coldest part, how calm he could be while planning my disappearance from our own marriage. Halfway through the session, his phone vibrated on the side table. I heard it even over the music because my body had been trained to listen for that sound. The therapist glanced at it, then away. Malcolm didn't move. He knew the rules. No phones, no interruptions. He'd told me once that discipline is what separates serious people from emotional ones. The phone vibrated again. Then it stopped. I pictured that unknown number, patient on the other end. I pictured wine-colored nails tapping a screen, waiting for a reply. I pictured the Harbor House suite door unlocking, quiet as betrayal. When the session ended, Malcolm sat up, looking loose and satisfied. "See?" he said, smiling. "You feel better already." I swung my feet off the table. "I feel something," I said. He laughed like I'd made a joke. "That's my girl." We walked out into the bright ship morning, and the ocean flashed beside us like a warning. Families in matching shirts posed for photos. An elderly couple held hands, moving slowly, carefully, like time was fragile. I watched them and felt grief twist in my stomach. Not for my marriage exactly, for the idea of safety, for the myth that long years guarantee loyalty. On the promenade, Malcolm stopped at a kiosk to buy sunscreen. He chatted with the clerk, charming. I stood beside him, nodding at the right moments, performing the role I'd played for decades, supportive wife. Inside my robe pocket, my phone was hot against my thigh. I waited until Malcolm stepped away to take a call. Of course he did, in a quiet corner, facing the sea like it was his confessional, and I slipped into the nearest restroom. I locked myself in a stall and opened my screenshots again. Reservation confirmed. 2 guests. Harbor House Suites key. She doesn't know anything. The words felt less like discovery and more like a verdict. A clean plan. Evidence, timing, control. I scrolled through the message thread again, slower this time. I forced myself to read like a prosecutor, not like a wife. Dates, names, patterns. I searched for a clue, any slip, and there it was, buried in casual conversation. Malcolm, I'll meet you near the piano bar at 9. Wear the black dress. Don't draw attention. Unknown. Always. You know I can behave. Malcolm, you're my favorite kind of trouble. The thread showed a small photo icon. I tapped it. A selfie. A woman in a mirror, shoulder-length hair, skin the color of warm caramel, a black dress hugging her like confidence. She held her phone high, lips parted in a smile that wasn't innocent. Behind her, a bathroom I recognized from the ship. Gold fixtures, patterned tile. She was on board. Not in some distant city. On this ship, with me, My pulse stayed steady. My body still hadn't given me the release of panic. It was as if my nervous system had decided that falling apart would be dangerous. I zoomed in on the selfie. Her eyes were sharp. Her expression was the kind that says, I know what I'm doing and I expect to win. Under the photo, the contact name still read unknown. But the selfie had metadata in the corner. Sometimes iPhones show it if you swipe. I swiped up, and there was the name attached to the airdrop label. Tiana R. Tiana. The name hit like cold water. Not because I knew her, because names make monsters human. Tiana Rowe. I whispered it in the stall, tasting the syllables. Then I took a screenshot of the metadata too. When I stepped out, I washed my hands like a normal woman and stared at my reflection. My eyes looked older than they had yesterday. Not in a tragic way, in a sharpened way, like grief had filed them down to points. I left the restroom and found Malcolm exactly where I'd left him, phone at his ear, smiling at the sea. He glanced at me and lifted a finger. 1 second. I nodded, patient wife, while my mind ran ahead. Piano bar at 9, black dress, don't draw attention. I wondered, briefly, if Malcolm enjoyed the thrill of doing this near me, if secrecy had become his kink, or if he simply believed I was too loyal, too polite, too trained to disrupt his life. He ended the call and slipped the phone into his pocket. Everything okay? I asked, using his line. He kissed my cheek. Just checking in with the office. On a Sunday, I said lightly. He shrugged. Business doesn't stop because you're on vacation. Neither does betrayal, I thought. Let's go eat, he said. I'm starving. We ate brunch with strangers. Malcolm told stories about our kids, about my lasagna, about that time I made him dance at our nephew's wedding. He made people laugh. He made me laugh too, once, and the sound felt wrong coming out of my mouth, like it belonged to someone else. Every few minutes, his phone buzzed. He checked it under the table. Quick glances, small smiles. He thought I didn't notice because he had trained me for years to doubt my own perception. Gaslighting isn't always screaming. Sometimes it's a quiet insistence that your eyes are lying. After brunch, Malcolm wanted to play shuffleboard. I said I needed a nap. He looked pleased, like his plan depended on my absence. Rest, he said, stroking my hair. You've been doing too much lately. Too much, thinking. I went back to the suite and waited until I heard the hallway door click shut behind him. Then I moved. I pulled the folder of travel documents from the desk. Excursion tickets, dinner reservations, port schedules. At the bottom, a pamphlet Malcolm had tucked away, Harbor House Suites. Same brochure I'd seen by the gift shop. He'd circled a phone number in pen. I took a photo. Then I opened the safe. Malcolm always used it on trips for passports and important stuff. He'd typed the code in front of me 100 times without thinking. Numbers stick when you've watched them long enough. The safe beeped and opened. Inside, our passports, a stack of cash, and a manila envelope labeled legal. My fingers went cold again. The label felt like a warning from the future. I slid the envelope out and opened it. Copies of documents, not originals. Malcolm was too careful for that. But copies are what you keep when you need leverage. There were printouts of our life insurance policies, updated last month. The beneficiary section was highlighted. Beneficiary, Malcolm Brooks, 100%. Contingent beneficiary, Tiana Rowe, 100%. My name was not there. I read it twice, then again, because my brain refused to accept the shape of the betrayal. Life insurance beneficiary changed. That phrase sounds clinical. On paper, it's just ink. In your hand, it's a knife. There was more. A draft of a will, Malcolm's will, dated 3 weeks ago, notarized. It named me, but in a way that made my skin crawl. Danielle Brooks shall receive the marital home and personal effects, contingent upon her signing the attached postnuptial agreement and waiver of claims. Attached postnuptial agreement. I flipped the page. In exchange for a lump sum payout and sole ownership of the home, Danielle Brooks agrees to waive any interest in business assets, retirement accounts, and future claims, including spousal support. I sat on the edge of the bed, paper shaking slightly now, the first crack in my calm. He had been writing my exit, and he'd made sure it sounded generous. House, personal effects, a clean little bow on a rotten package. I kept reading. There was a clause about confidentiality, a gag order dressed up as non-disparagement. I imagined Malcolm sliding this across a table with a warm smile, calling it simple paperwork. I imagined him telling me it was for privacy. I imagined him watching me sign while thinking about the Harbor House suite. A soft knock came at the door. I froze, papers in my lap like contraband. "Housekeeping," a voice called. "Later," I said, voice steady. Footsteps moved away. I exhaled slowly. Then I took photos of everything. The beneficiary page, the will clause, the postnup. I emailed the images to myself and to Renee, because Renee was the only person I trusted to hold my truth if my hands started shaking too hard. Subject line: "Don't call, read when you can." Then I put every paper back exactly where I found it. I slid the envelope into the safe, closed it, and spun the dial. If Malcolm checked later, it would look untouched. He loved the illusion of control. I would let him keep it until it mattered. I stood up and walked to the balcony. The sea glittered, indifferent. The ship's horn sounded in the distance, long and low, like an animal warning the others. I whispered to myself, "This isn't just cheating, this is planning." That evening came too fast. At 8:30, Malcolm showered and dressed with extra care. He chose his charcoal blazer, the one that makes him look like he belongs in magazines. He sprayed cologne on his wrists and neck, then kissed me like a man leaving for dinner with his wife. "You look beautiful," he said, eyes flicking over my dress. Navy, simple, elegant. Not black. "I thought you liked this one," I said. "It's fine," he said quickly, then smiled. "Classic. Ready?" I picked up my clutch and followed him out, heart quiet, mind loud. The piano bar was tucked near the ship's atrium, a dim room with velvet chairs and low lamps. A musician played soft standards. People sipped martinis. Laughter drifted like smoke. The atmosphere was designed to make you feel like secrets are romantic. Malcolm guided me to a table in the corner. "Perfect," he said, scanning the room. He wasn't scanning for ambiance. He was scanning for her. At 9 on the dot, she appeared. Tiana Rowe walked in wearing a black dress that could stop traffic. She moved like she knew eyes would follow. She didn't look around nervously. She looked around like she owned the place. Then her gaze landed on Malcolm. A small smile touched her mouth. Malcolm's hand tightened around his glass. A microsecond of panic. Then he smoothed his face back into husband mode. I watched him watch her. And I understood something else, something colder. This wasn't an affair born from loneliness. Malcolm wasn't starving for affection. He was starving for power, the power to have two lives and keep both women orbiting him like moons. Tiana walked toward us, slow, deliberate, like she was approaching a stage. "Malcolm," she said, voice warm. Then she looked at me. Her smile widened. "And you must be Danielle." My name on her tongue felt like a violation. "Yes," I said. Tiana held out her hand. "It's so nice to finally meet you." Finally. As if I'd been a concept, not a person. As if she'd known about me all along. I took her hand. Her grip was firm. Her skin was cool. "Likewise," I said. Malcolm stood quickly, chair scraping. "Tiana," he said too brightly. "What are you doing here?" She laughed softly. "Vacation, Malcolm. Same as you." He glanced at me. "Tiana works with me," he said, as if that explained why she had just approached his anniversary table. "I know," I said, keeping my voice flat. "We've heard so much." Malcolm's eyes flashed. A warning, don't. Tiana sat without being invited, crossing her legs. "I didn't know you two were celebrating something special," she said, looking at Malcolm. "You didn't mention an anniversary." He cleared his throat. "It's last minute." Last minute. 25 years reduced to last minute. Tiana tilted her head, studying me. "You're stunning," she said. Malcolm always said you were. Always. I could see the script forming. She was going to pretend this was chance. Malcolm was going to pretend he was a victim of her boldness. And if I reacted, I'd be the unstable one. So I didn't react. I leaned back slightly and looked at Tiana like I was evaluating a business proposal. Are you enjoying the ship? I asked. Tiana's smile flickered. It's lovely. The suites are gorgeous. Suites. Plural. The word landed heavy. Malcolm's jaw tightened. He shot her a quick look, sharp as a slap. I watched the exchange and felt chills crawl up my arms. They were communicating in silence, negotiating boundaries, right in front of me, like I was furniture. How long have you been with the company? I asked, still calm. 18 months, Tiana said smoothly. 18 months. My chest tightened, but my face stayed still. The number matched the timeline of that message thread. It matched the feeling I'd had last year when Malcolm started acting like his phone was a limb. Tiana's eyes were on Malcolm now. We should talk, she said softly, not caring that I could hear. Malcolm forced a laugh. Now's not a good time. She leaned closer. It's always not a good time. That's what you always say. There it was. The crack. I let it widen. Tiana, I said gently, I'm sure Malcolm will find time for any work concerns. Work concerns. I tasted the lie as I spoke it. But the lie served me now. It kept the room calm while the tension sharpened. Tiana looked at me again, eyes narrowing. Oh, it's not work, she said. Malcolm's hand shot out, touching her wrist under the table. A warning disguised as intimacy. His thumb pressed once. Hard. Tiana's smile returned, but now it was edged. Anyway, she said brightly, I just wanted to say hello. It would have been rude not to. She stood, smoothing her dress. She leaned down toward Malcolm, close enough that her perfume washed over us, sweet, floral, wrong. I'll see you, she murmured. Then she walked away, heels clicking like punctuation. The music continued. People continued laughing. The pianist played Fly Me to the Moon, like the universe had a dark sense of humor. Malcolm exhaled and turned to me. That was awkward, he said. I looked at him. What a coincidence, I said softly. He frowned. What do you mean? I said, voice still calm, it's interesting that your colleague happened to be on the same ship and happened to wander into the piano bar at exactly 9 and happened to know it was our anniversary. His eyes sharpened. Danielle, don't do this. There it was again. Don't do this. As if truth was an action I was choosing to commit against him. I'm not doing anything, I said. I'm just noticing. He leaned forward, voice low. You're making something out of nothing. Nothing. The hotel key, the documents, the texts. 2 guests. Nothing. I smiled slightly. You're right, I said. It's probably nothing. He relaxed, just a fraction. Then my phone buzzed in my clutch. A new email notification from Renee. Subject, call me now. My stomach dropped, but not like fear, like confirmation. I stood slowly. I need the restroom, I said. Malcolm reached for my hand. Danielle, I pulled away gently. I'll be right back. In the hallway outside the piano bar, the air felt cooler. The carpet patterns swirled under my feet like waves. I walked fast, not running, because running makes you look guilty. I found an empty corner near the elevators and opened Renee's email. It was a forwarded public record link and a message in Renee's blunt language. Danielle, he filed the beneficiary change in January. Your name removed, Tiana added as contingent. Also, he updated a business ownership document last month. You are not a partner. He's been moving assets. Call Alyssa, now. Alyssa, my attorney friend, my real-life lifeline. I stared at the words while the elevator chimed behind me, doors opening and closing like a heartbeat. He'd been moving assets, not just cheating, stripping, preparing. My hands finally shook, small tremors. I dialed Alyssa. It rang once, twice. She answered on the third ring, voice sleepy but sharp. Danielle? I swallowed. I'm on the Magnolia Bell. I know, she said. Renee texted me. Talk. I leaned against the wall, eyes scanning the corridor, as if Malcolm might appear like a shadow. He changed the beneficiary, I whispered. And there's a will. A postnup. Alyssa didn't gasp. She didn't dramatize. Her calm was clinical. Do you have copies? Photos, I said. I can send them. Send them now, she said. Danielle, listen to me. Do not sign anything. Do not confront him alone in a private space. You are on a ship, which means you are isolated. That's not an accident. The words made my stomach twist. You think he planned the isolation. I think he planned everything, Alyssa said. Based on what Renee found, he's been repositioning assets for months. That means this isn't a midlife crisis. This is a strategy. Strategy, the same word I'd been thinking. My throat burned. What do I do? First, Alyssa said, you stay calm. You keep your phone charged. You keep your passport on you. You don't let him separate you from your documents. Second, you gather evidence of infidelity and of financial deception. Third, you locate ship security. If you feel unsafe, you report it. You understand? I swallowed again. Yes. And Danielle, she added, voice lower, if he's willing to remove you from his financial life, don't assume he won't try to remove you from his physical life too. Cold crawled up my spine. He wouldn't. You don't know what he would do, Alyssa said. You only know what he's been doing, and he's been lying. I closed my eyes, forcing my breath steady. Send me the photos, Alyssa said. I'll draft an emergency plan. We can file when you get back, but we can also prepare now. I want you to start a timeline. Every text, every interaction, every document. Be boring, be detailed. That's how you win. Be boring, be detailed. The opposite of a screaming confrontation. I exhaled. Okay. When I ended the call, my body felt both heavier and clearer. I forwarded my photos to Alyssa and Renee, then created a new note titled Timeline. 2:13 a.m. Reservation confirmed. 2 guests. 10:06 a.m. Harbor House Suites key found. 1:22 p.m. Brochure with circled number. 4:18 p.m. Safe opened. Beneficiary changed. Postnup draft. 9:00 p.m. Tiana appeared at piano bar. I wrote it like a death certificate for my marriage. Then I put my phone away and walked back to the piano bar with my face composed. Malcolm was still at the table, swirling his drink like nothing had happened. You were gone a while, he said, voice tight. I ran into someone, I lied. He watched me closely, eyes scanning for cracks. Who? Just a woman asking about excursions, I said, sitting down. His gaze flicked to my clutch. You on your phone? A little, I said. Renee sent me something funny. He relaxed, but not fully. The predator in him was awake now. We should go, he said. It's late. Sure, I said, and stood. As we walked back to the suite, Malcolm's hand found my elbow, guiding me too firmly. His touch wasn't affectionate. It was control. You embarrassed me, he said quietly, near the elevator, voice sweet enough to fool anyone standing nearby. I looked at him. How? You made it weird, he said. With Tiana. Tiana made it weird, I replied calmly. She sat at our table. She's unstable, he said quickly. She gets attached. You saw that. He was already building his story. She's obsessed, he continued. I've been trying to handle it. I didn't want to stress you. Handle it. There was that word again, like a rubber stamp on his lies. You should have told me, I said softly. He sighed, rubbing his forehead like the burden of 2 women was exhausting. Because I knew how you'd react. Like this? I asked. He stopped walking, turning to face me fully. His smile faded. His eyes hardened just a little. Danielle, he said low, don't start digging into things you don't understand. The air between us felt suddenly thin, like we'd stepped into a colder part of the ship. I understand plenty, I said. His jaw flexed. Not tonight, he said. We're going to bed. We entered the suite. Malcolm locked the door behind us, a click that sounded louder than it should have. He tossed his blazer over a chair and loosened his tie. Come here, he said, stepping toward me. My skin crawled, not because of intimacy, but because I suddenly understood the power dynamic. If he could move money and paperwork without my knowledge, he could also decide when I was allowed to say no. He'd been practicing control for years. This ship was just a new stage. I'm tired, I said, stepping back. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. We're married. I held his gaze. And? His smile thinned. Don't play games, he said. I'm not, I replied. He took another step. I took another back until my calves hit the edge of the bed. For a moment, his face changed. It was subtle. A flash of irritation. A calculation. Then he softened, like flipping a switch. Danielle, he said gently, I love you. I booked this trip for us. We've been distant. I want us close again. His voice was almost convincing. It would have worked on yesterday's Danielle. But tonight I could still smell Tiana's perfume in the piano bar. I could still see my name missing from the beneficiary page. I need air, I said. He watched me, then nodded, too quickly. Fine. I'll shower. I picked up my phone and went to the balcony, shutting the glass door behind me. The ocean was dark again, vast and quiet. The ship's wake glowed faintly, a trail of foam, like something trying to erase itself. I leaned on the railing and breathed. And then, from somewhere above, I heard laughter. Soft. Female. It drifted down from an upper balcony like a secret. I looked up. On the balcony above ours, a silhouette leaned over the railing. A woman's outline in a black dress. A cigarette ember glowed briefly, then disappeared. Tiana. She exhaled smoke into the night like she was marking territory. My stomach tightened. She knew where our suite was. That meant Malcolm had told her, or shown her, or brought her here. The thought was ice. Tiana's voice floated down, light as a taunt. Beautiful night, isn't it? I stared up at her, my face calm. Enjoy it, she added. Nights like this don't last. Then she disappeared back into darkness. I stood there for a long time, listening to the ocean and the distant music, and the faint hum of the ship's engines, and I realized something that made the hair on my arms rise. This wasn't just a marriage ending, this was a hunt, and I had to decide right then whether I was prey or I was the one holding the knife. I went inside, locked myself in the bathroom, and opened my note titled Timeline again. Then I added a new line. 10:47 p.m. Tiana seen on balcony above ours. She knows our location. I stared at the words. My husband cheated on a cruise, yes, but the colder truth was this. He had invited the danger onto the ship with us. He had brought the threat close on purpose. And if I wanted to survive what came next, I couldn't rely on love. I had to rely on documentation, on strategy, on being colder than the people trying to freeze me out of my own life. I turned off the bathroom light and looked at myself in the mirror one last time before bed. My eyes didn't look old anymore. They looked awake. And somewhere in the suite, Malcolm whistled softly in the shower like a man with nothing to fear. That's when I knew. He thought the ending was already decided. He just didn't know I'd read the script. Malcolm woke up smiling, like the night before had been a bad commercial he could mute. Breakfast arrived on a tray, coffee, fruit, 2 perfect pastries, and he set it between us on the balcony table. The ocean glittered like a clean lie. He wore his calm the way he wore his watch. Expensive, polished, meant to signal control. Morning, he said. You okay? I'm functioning, I said. He laughed softly, pleased with himself. Good, because I booked something special for today. He slid a brochure toward me. Private cabana. The picture showed a stretch of sand so empty it looked staged. Quiet. Isolated. Off ship. My phone buzzed in my lap. Alyssa, do not go anywhere private with him. Stay in public. If he pushes, contact ship security. I read it and tucked the phone away without changing my face. That sounds relaxing, I said, letting him hear what he wanted. Malcolm's eyes warmed. He reached across the table and covered my hand, not tenderly, possessively. We need to reset, he said. You've been tense. Tense, the word he used for a woman who was noticing. He went inside to shower, whistling, and I moved fast. I dressed like a tourist, sundress, sandals, sunglasses, because safety sometimes looks like normal. I packed my passport, my credit card, and the tiny extension card Alyssa told me to get from security if I could. I hadn't gotten it yet, so I went to guest services. The desk glowed under bright lights, all smiles and brochures, and "Have a magical day." A woman with a badge that read Lena looked up. Hi, how can I help? I leaned in, voice low. I need ship security, quietly. Her smile didn't drop, but her eyes sharpened. 1 moment, ma'am. 2 minutes later, Officer Price appeared from a side corridor. Navy uniform, broad shoulders, eyes that had learned to read a room before the room spoke. Ma'am, he said, and his tone was calm enough to borrow. Come with me. He led me into a small security office behind frosted glass. The air smelled like coffee and printer ink. A wall of monitors showed the ship from every angle. Elevators, hallways, stairwells, life reduced to camera frames. Price closed the door. Tell me. I chose my words carefully because words are evidence when someone tries to rewrite you later. My husband is having an affair with a passenger, I said. I found proof. He's trying to isolate me today with a private excursion. And the woman, she knows where we're staying. Price watched my face, looking for hysteria he could dismiss. He didn't find it. Any threats? He asked. Not direct, I said. But he's controlling. When he's challenged, he gets strategic. Price nodded once. Do you feel unsafe in your cabin? I feel unsafe being alone with him, I said, and I'm trying not to alert him. Okay, he said. We can do 3 things. 1. Create an incident report with your statement. 2. Preserve relevant camera footage if there's an interaction in public spaces. 3. Escort you if you request it. We can also intervene if he tries to move you into a private area. My throat loosened a little. I want a plan, I said, not a scene. That's the right request, Price said. He handed me a form. Write names, times, locations, boring details. I wrote like I was filing a complaint against gravity. 2:13 a.m. Reservation confirmation, 2 guests. Harbor House Suites key found. Tiana Rowe approached us at the piano bar, 9:00 to cake TPC. Tiana seen on balcony above our suite, 10:47 p.m. Life insurance beneficiary changed. Tiana listed as contingent. Husband pushing private cabana excursion today. Price read it and exhaled through his nose. Do you have copies of the documents? I have photos, I said. Email them to yourself and your attorney, he said. Cloud too, if you can. If your phone disappears, your evidence shouldn't. I nodded. My attorney is on standby. Price slid a small card across the desk, an extension number. If you need us, call from your cabin phone. If you can't, come to guest services and say you lost your key. Lena will know what it means. A coded phrase, a way to ask for help without waving a flag. Thank you, I said. Price's eyes held mine. Stay in public, he said. Predators don't like witnesses. Predators. On my way out, I caught my reflection in the dark glass beneath the monitor wall. A woman in sunglasses at 9 in the morning, lips pressed, shoulders straight. I looked like someone headed to an art auction, not someone quietly preparing an exit. One screen showed the aft stairwell, empty, fluorescent, the kind of place where sound gets swallowed. Another showed a service corridor lined with white doors and humming machines. The ship had 1,000 small hidden places, and the thought of being pulled into one of them made my mouth go dry. Every camera lens felt like an eye that could either save me or miss me by inches. I thought of my kids, grown now, living their own lives, and how they still called me when they were scared. They believed I could fix things. Today, I didn't need to fix Malcolm. I needed to outlast him, long enough to get off here with my name, my money, and my mind intact. The word stayed with me as I walked back to the suite, because it was a word you don't use unless you mean it. Malcolm was buttoning his shirt when I returned, expression smooth. "There you are," he said. "Ready for the cabana?" I smiled. "Sure." His gaze dropped to my bag. "Why do you have your passport?" "Port day," I said lightly. "I don't want to forget it." A flicker crossed his face. Tiny suspicion, quickly buried. "Always prepared," he said, like it was a compliment. It wasn't. We disembarked with the crowd. Heat hit us, thick and wet. Vendors shouted, music thumped. The port smelled like sunscreen and diesel. Malcolm held my hand too tight, steering me through bodies like I might vanish if he loosened his grip. At the excursion check-in, a staffer scanned our ship cards. "Private cabana," she chirped. "2 guests." Malcolm's fingers crushed mine. "Yes," he said, too smooth. The staffer frowned at her tablet. It says your booking needs verification back on the ship. Guest services can fix it." Malcolm's smile froze. "What?" "Billing mismatch," she said cheerfully. "Happens." Malcolm turned to me. "Go wait by the fountain. I'll handle this." "No," I said. "I'll come." His eyes sharpened. "Danielle, I don't mind paperwork," I said. "You taught me how important it is." That landed. He didn't like hearing his own lessons repurposed. We walked back up the gangway in silence. Inside, guest services looked exactly the same. Bright, happy, fake. Lena beamed at Malcolm like she hadn't helped set a trap. "Mr. Brooks," she said. "So sorry. Officer Price will assist." Malcolm blinked. "Security?" "Standard verification," Lena said. Price appeared, calm as a locked door. "Sir," he said. "This way." Malcolm glanced at me, anger held in place by public eyes. "Danielle, come." Price didn't look at him. "Ma'am can wait," he said. "It'll be brief." I sat in a chair near the desk, hands folded. My heart kept a steady beat, not because I wasn't afraid, but because fear is useful only if it stays quiet. 10 minutes passed. Then Malcolm came back, face controlled and pale, like someone had read him a sentence he hadn't expected. "There was a misunderstanding," he said quickly. "It's handled." Handled, his favorite word for hiding damage. "So no cabana?" I asked. He swallowed. "We'll rebook something else. Or we'll stay on the ship," I said. "I'm tired." He studied me, looking for softness. I gave him none. "Fine," he said. "We'll stay." We walked back to the suite. The hallway carpet looked like waves, looping patterns designed to soothe. Today, it looked like a current. When the door shut behind us, Malcolm's voice dropped. "What did you do?" he asked. I set my bag down carefully. "Nothing." His smile was sharp. "Security doesn't just misunderstand. Guest services doesn't just glitch. That was you." I met his eyes. "Maybe the ship is glitchy," I said. "Don't play dumb," he snapped, then smoothed himself, because even in private, he wanted to appear reasonable. "You've been different." I nodded once. "I've been awake." He stepped closer. "Awake to what?" I chose the first truth, the one that couldn't be argued. "Harbor House Suites," I said. The smile died. For a second, Malcolm looked like someone had turned off the power behind his face. Then the machine restarted. "What are you talking about?" he asked, voice too calm. "I saw the key," I said. "And I saw the reservation. 2 guests." He exhaled slowly, as if I were an inconvenience. "So you went through my wallet." "I found it," I said. He shook his head. "You're making something out of nothing. Tiana's unstable. She's attached. I've been trying to let her down gently." He said it like a man rehearsing for court. "She's the problem," he added. "Not me." I tilted my head. "Then why is she your contingent beneficiary?" The air went cold. Malcolm's mouth opened, then closed. The pause was 3 seconds too long. The same pause men give when they're calculating their next lie. "You opened the safe," he said. "I did," I answered. His eyes narrowed, rage surfacing. "That's illegal." "No," I said calmly. "It's our safe, in our suite, on our trip." His jaw flexed. He hated being corrected. "How much did you see?" he asked. "Enough," I said, and that was the first time my voice turned truly cold. Malcolm stared at me like I was a stranger who'd stepped into his house wearing my face. "You're spiraling," he said softly. "This is what pregnancy hormones did to your sister, remember? Anxiety, paranoia." There it was. The narrative. The plan to paint me as unstable. I didn't flinch. "Don't diagnose me," I said. "You're not a doctor. You're a man who moved paperwork behind my back." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I did what I had to do to protect our future." "Our future?" I repeated. "You removed my name." He smiled thin. "You don't understand business." I nodded. "I understand marriage, and I understand betrayal." He leaned in, close enough that I could smell his cologne. Clean, expensive, meant to cover rot. "Listen," he whispered. "You don't want to do this publicly. Think about what people will think. Think about the kids. Reputation, shame, silence. The old tools." I picked up my phone. "Alyssa knows," I said. His face shifted, real panic, then quick control. "You called a lawyer?" he hissed. "Yes," I said, "because you drafted legal documents." He stared at me for a long beat, then nodded slowly, like he was accepting a new game. "Okay," he said softly. "If you want hardball, we can do hardball." He reached for his phone. My skin prickled. "Who are you calling?" He looked at me with eyes that were suddenly empty. "Someone loyal," he said. "Tiana." He walked to the balcony door and slid it open. The sea air rushed in, cold and loud. He turned his back to me and spoke into the phone, voice low. I didn't need to hear the words to know what he was doing. He wasn't calling a friend. He was calling reinforcement. When he ended the call, he turned around with his mask back on, calm as a man ordering dessert. "Get dressed," he said. "We're going to talk." "No," I said. His eyes narrowed. "Danielle?" "I'm not going anywhere private with you," I said. "Not anymore." A pause. Then he smiled, slow and frightening. "You think security makes you safe," he murmured. "You think documentation wins." I held his gaze. "It does," I said. He stepped closer anyway, and his voice turned velvet dark. "People believe the calm man," he whispered, "not the emotional woman." He was telling me the shape of his plan. I would be hysterical. He would be reasonable. The world would choose him. Then, from the hallway, came 3 taps on our door. Not housekeeping, not polite. A pause, like someone enjoying the suspense. Then a woman's voice, smooth as perfume. "Malcolm?" she called. "It's me." "Tiana." Malcolm's smile widened, satisfied, like a man who'd called backup to watch me blink. I didn't blink. I crossed to the cabin phone, slow and deliberate, and dialed the extension on Officer Price's card. The line clicked. "Security!" a voice answered. I kept my eyes on Malcolm as I spoke. "This is Danielle Brooks," I said. "I need an escort. Now." And for the first time since that chirp at 2:13 a.m., Malcolm's face showed something real. Fear. Not fear of losing love, fear of being seen. Officer Price arrived fast, like he'd been waiting for the sound of my voice. 2 security guards stood behind him, quiet, broad, expressionless. Not aggressive, just present, witnesses in uniform. Malcolm opened the door before they could knock, wearing his reasonable man face like a mask freshly polished. "Officer," he said, voice smooth, "there's been a misunderstanding. My wife is upset." Price lifted a hand, gentle but final. "Ma'am requested an escort," he said. That's what we're here for. Tiana stood in the hallway in her black dress, arms crossed like she was entitled to the scene. Her perfume reached us before she did. Sweet, expensive, and wrong. She smiled at me as if we were sharing a private joke. Danielle, she said, sugary. I just wanted to talk. Price's eyes flicked to her. Ma'am, step back. Tiana's smile tightened. I'm not doing anything. No, Price said calmly. But you will step back. She did, but slowly, like a woman who didn't like being told no. Malcolm turned to me, his voice lowering. You're really doing this, he murmured, in front of strangers. I'm doing it in front of witnesses, I corrected. The word witnesses landed heavy. Malcolm's jaw flexed. He hated that word because it meant the story wasn't his alone anymore. Price looked at me. Ma'am, do you want to leave the cabin? Yes, I said. And I want a separate room. Malcolm laughed, short and sharp. A separate room? Danielle, be serious. Price didn't even glance at him. We can relocate you, he said to me. We'll also note the request in the report. Malcolm stepped forward, too close. This is ridiculous. We're married. One of the guards shifted half a step, subtle. Malcolm noticed. He stopped. I picked up my bag, passport, phone, charger, the small things that become everything when your life splits in two. My hands didn't shake. My heart did, but it stayed deep inside, where he couldn't use it against me. As I passed Malcolm, he reached for my wrist, not hard enough to bruise, hard enough to claim. Price's voice cut through the air. Sir, do not touch her. Malcolm released me immediately, smiling again. Of course, I was just trying to control her, I said quietly. Tiana made a small sound, almost a laugh. You're dramatic. I turned my head and looked at her for the first time, like she was fully real, not just a shadow in my marriage. Tell me something, I said. Did he promise you a life, or did he promise you a timeline? Her eyes flashed. Malcolm's eyes flashed harder. That was my answer. We walked down the hallway with security around me like a moving wall. The carpet swallowed our footsteps, but the cameras didn't. Every lens we passed felt like a small relief. Proof I was upright, calm, leaving by choice. At guest services, Lena's smile softened when she saw Price. She handed me a new keycard without asking questions. Room 8142, she said quietly. If you need anything, dial 0. Price turned to Malcolm, who had followed at a distance, still performing injured husband. Tiana hovered behind him like a second shadow. Sir, Price said, you are to have no direct contact with ma'am unless she requests it. If you approach her room, we will intervene. Malcolm spread his hands. This is insane. She's upset. She'll calm down. Price's face didn't change. This is procedure. Procedure, the word that stops men like Malcolm from rewriting reality. In my new room, the air felt colder, not because the temperature changed, but because I finally had space. I closed the door and leaned against it, letting my shoulders drop 1 inch. Then I opened my phone. Alyssa had already replied. Good. Stay separated. When you dock, you leave first. Do not be alone with him. We file emergency orders as soon as you're home. I typed back. I have the beneficiary pages. I have the will. I have the Harbor House reservation. I have a witness report. Her reply came fast. Perfect. Evidence beats charm. That night, Malcolm texted me from a new number. Danielle, please, don't do this. Think about the kids. I didn't respond. 10 minutes later, another text. Tiana is unstable. I was trying to handle it. You're making it worse. Still no response. Then, the one that finally made my skin go cold in a different way. If you keep pushing, you'll regret it. A threat dressed as advice. I screenshotted it and forwarded it to Alyssa and Officer Price. Then I blocked the number. I slept in short pieces, waking to the hum of the ship like a heartbeat that didn't belong to me. At 3 a.m., I stood at the window and watched the ocean. Black. Endless. Somewhere out there, people disappeared and the water closed over them like nothing happened. I thought about the documents in the safe. The beneficiary change. The contingent name that wasn't mine. I thought about Malcolm's calm face and how close it had come to becoming dangerous when he realized I'd read his script. In the morning, the ship docked. The intercom chirped cheerfully. "Good morning, guests. Welcome to our beautiful port city." The voice sounded like a lie. I left early, escorted by security, my bag in my hand and my head high. On the gangway, I felt Malcolm's eyes on my back like heat, but I didn't turn around. Turning around is how you let a man pull you back into his gravity. At the terminal, I called my son first. "Mom?" He answered, sleepy. "You okay?" "I'm okay," I said. "But I need you to listen. When I get home, I'm not coming back to the house. I'm going to Renee's." Silence. Then, "What did Dad do?" The question was so simple it almost broke me. "He cheated," I said. "And he planned things. Financial things. I'm handling it." My son's breath changed. Anger, sharp. "I'm coming." "No," I said firmly. "Not yet. Let me do this the right way. I need you safe too." Then I called my daughter. Then Renee. Then Alyssa. By noon, Alyssa had filed emergency paperwork, separation, protective orders, a freeze request on certain accounts. The legal system moves slow until it doesn't. When evidence is clean, it starts to move like a door unlocking. Within 48 hours, Malcolm's bank called him with questions he couldn't charm away. His HR department called him with concerns about a conflict of interest. The insurance company flagged the beneficiary change for review because of a contested claim. My claim, my signature, my challenge. The will draft became part of a file, not a plan. Tiana tried to call me once. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice came through, soft and shaken. "He told me you were cold," she said. "He said you didn't love him anymore. He said you were going to leave him broke. He said he needed me." I stared at the voicemail transcript and felt something settle. Malcolm didn't love women. He used them. I didn't call her back. Not because she didn't deserve an answer, but because she didn't deserve my energy. Understanding is not the same as forgiveness, and I wasn't going to become the therapist for the woman who sat at my anniversary table in a black dress like a knife. 3 weeks later, I stood in Renee's kitchen and signed the final protective paperwork. My hand didn't shake. My signature looked like my name, not like a plea. When I walked outside afterward, the air smelled like rain. Clean, honest. I lifted my face to it and let the drops hit my skin. For the first time in a long time, my body believed the world could be real again. If you're listening to me right now, here's what I learned. A marriage doesn't always end with yelling. Sometimes it ends with a quiet chirp, a keycard, a beneficiary change. Sometimes the scariest part isn't the affair, it's the planning, the way someone can smile at you while writing you out of your own life. But here's the other truth. When you stop begging to be loved and start demanding to be safe, everything changes. I didn't destroy Malcolm. I simply refused to be erased. And that was enough. If this story hit you in the chest, do me a favor. Like the video so it reaches the people who need it. Comment and tell me where you're listening from. And if you've ever ignored your instincts, tell me. What was the first red flag you wished you hadn't excused? Subscribe for more stories like this. Stories about betrayal, survival, and the cold, quiet power of starting over. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't fire. It's living well with your name still intact.